If you don't want bad things to happen, you have to stand up and you have to use the law that is there. And I'm a professor, I have knowledge. I have to do it because I have the ability.
Creative arts have the power of shaping how people think and how they view the world and how they relate to others. There's so much that can be expressed by language that cannot be expressed otherwise. So I think languages are very important in allowing us to reach other people and to speak to other people and forge understanding between different people. My name is Gibson Ncube, and I lecture French at Stellenbosch University. So I moved to Stellenbosch first in 2012 to start my PhD in French and Francophone literatures. When I first came here, I found the campus to be super cool. I'm originally Zimbabwean and I grew up in Bulawayo. Yeah, it was a big shift coming from Harare to here.
I'm Pierre de Vos. I am a professor of constitutional law, human rights law, born in Musina on the border with Zimbabwe. It was the 60s and 70s when I was in school, so you can imagine how it was. So ek was se eerste jaar in Stellenbosch Universiteit in 1983. My politieke bewuswording het hier op Stellenbosch eintlik gebeur. At the time, we thought being in New South and the ECC, we're changing the world, but we were very naive. I mean, what was our influence compared to other people who really sacrificed? Maar dit was op 'n manier ook sosiaal. It was a social savior to be an activist because there's community, there's solidarity, all the things that were missing in the broader society.
I struggled with language myself. I only started speaking at the age of 7, and after that I just seemed to absorb languages very fast, and I found languages the easiest thing in high school and primary school. So my PhD focused on the representation of queer sexualities in North African literatures, and it was the first PhD, I think, to deal with queer sexualities in that part of the African continent where a combination of politics, tradition, religion make it very difficult for queer people to live their lives openly. Queer sexualities existed on the continent way before the arrival of white people. Queer communities remain marginalized and ostracized in different contexts on the African continent. Even in South Africa, where thanks to a very progressive constitution, queer people, especially I think in the impoverished communities, still face different forms of challenges and violence as well.
May this moment be remembered as a milestone in the struggle for a just and a free South Africa.
So the new constitution, 96 constitution, was unique because it was a never again constitution. So this constitution is here to make sure we never repeat those things that happened in apartheid. It's a very expansive Bill of Rights with not only the traditional liberal rights, but also social economic rights. It gives courts a lot of power, and of course, it also has the equality clause that prohibits discrimination on all relevant grounds, but 16 listed, one of them being sexual orientation. The South African Constitution was the first constitution in the world that had written into the Constitution explicitly no discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation in the whole world.
It's been important for me in my work to show that queerness is African. So I think it's important to think about and to consider these issues and initiate dialogues and conversations around non-normative sexualities and ways of being in a way that creates, I think, more encompassing and more open societies on the continent.
In order to give effect to the Constitutional Court ruling, same-sex couples have to be allowed to marry so that they can enjoy the status, obligations and entitlements enjoyed at the moment by opposite-sex couples.
Ek is 'n bietjie ambivalent oor die marriage ding. My gevoel is dit is simbolies baie belangrik. En vir baie mense is om te trou baie belangrik. En so ek en my kollega het na die parlement toe gegaan toe hulle die wetsontwerp bespreek en die voorsitter het toe vir my gevra, maar hoekom wil julle gay mense nou trou? You know, hy het nou nie die grappie gemaak nie, maar dis bietjie soos die heteroseksuele paartjie, die grappie van hulle wat die man vir die vrou sê, hy lees die Koran. What? Now the homosexuals want to get married, haven't they suffered enough? My vra toe vir my dit, en my antwoord is, toe het ek het al vir myself uitgewerk en gesê, dis vir my ma. Dis vir my ma. En ek bedoel dit as 'n grappie, maar ook nie. Ek sê vir hom, as jy my ma ontmoet het, sal jy haar nie dit misken nie, want elke ma wil 'n foto van hulle kind op hulle huweliksdag hê wat hulle in die voorhuis sit. En dit is wat hierdie oor gaan. Ja.
I think for me, the dream is to see queer people integrated into their different societies and where a queer person does not need to fear for their life. I think queer people and women, especially in Africa, have to navigate different social contexts in which they have to continuously fear for their lives and their well-being. And I think it's good to create a world in which people, regardless of their sexual orientation, are free to be themselves.
My 6 years at Stellenbosch was formative for me. It started changing my political consciousness. By the time I left, I was a bit bitter about Stellenbosch. The residences were still racially segregated. It's a deeply conservative, reactionary institution. So there was a time when I didn't want anything to do with Stellenbosch and with Matie. So I'm feeling much better about Stellenbosch. Coming here today in the ou hoofgebou, I didn't have that feeling on the stomach of, wie gaat ons nou weer?
Seeing Stellenbosch grow and also change in important ways, I think is a good thing.